Sorry for the delay and welcome to the 2024-2025 Hall of Fame. And just like with the Hall of Shame, we'll have 5 games for 2024 and 5 games for 2025 that will be the best of the best that will grace the list. But unlike with the Hall of Shame, things are going to be a little different because one actually is already inducted, and that would be Samurai Warriors 2 Empires. So with that said, here are the remaining 9 entrants into the Hall of Fame. Namco, if you want people to be interested in the Soul Calibur series again, you gotta go back to the roots. Well, keep the breast sliders and the creative characters, but you gotta go back to the roots of Soul Calibur 3. The game that started the whole creative character system, but moreover, the only game in the series that doesn't have guest characters and doesn't have microtransactions. All you gotta do is just pick up and play, and through gameplay, you earn more characters in the roster, and not only have a base roster that's actually big enough for that, but also you earn game modes as well. And not to mention, have a game mode for the edit characters known as Chronicles of the Sword, which was already good in its own right, but also gave players a chance to create characters and go through the story. Not to mention, there is a shop that you can actually use the gold from gameplay to purchase items, to purchase weapons, and to purchase clothing for your characters. And moreover, there's an evil and good system anyway. Not to mention, there's many other things you can do in Soul Calibur 3. So long as you play the game, and that's all you need to worry about. And not to mention have a really good soundtrack as well. If you would have done that with 6, people would have been a lot more interested in 6 than what they were now. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, Soul Calibur 3 is the greatest game in the series for the reasons I just listed, and that is why it's in the Hall of Fame. And pray that the next Soul Calibur that Namco does has no microtransactions or guest characters. But we can only dream, right? Get ready for the next battle. Obviously, this game was going to be on this Hall of Fame. It was only a matter of time. But, believe it or not, this game just recently came onto the Xbox Store this year. However, it took the arcade by storm, took PS1 by storm. Fighter Maker was based off of it, and moreover, Tekken 5 has Tekken 3 as a port of it. Not to mention, ladies and gentlemen, it has bowling and a beat-em-up game in the classic arcade version in the console version, while the arcade is just simply good old-fashioned fun. It's an easy game to pick up, it's an easy game to play, and it's an easy game to enjoy. And that's why everybody loves Tekken 3. I mean, you can't really talk about the whole entire Tekken series without Tekken 3. And then when you look at 8, you wonder where the hell it all fell off. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Tekken 3, the king of Iron Fist itself, as it is now a 2024 recipient of the Hall of Fame. I promise after Tekken 3, because Tekken 5 already got a Hall of Fame entry, that if a game is part of a port, good or bad, and the port itself is RV-tastic, then the game itself will get an RV-tastic by default. With that said, Kingdom Hearts! It is, in fact, in the Hall of Fame. Not just one game, but the 1.5 and 2.5 and also the 2.8 HD Remix. The game that tells you the story from the beginning all the way up to the end. basically covering not only the PlayStation 2 games, the PlayStation 3 games, and the PlayStation Plus games. We'll see how 2.8 was PlayStation 3 exclusive, but it also covered the handheld games as well. Well, some cutscenes anyway. But whatever the case, ladies and gentlemen, you're able to play and actually catch up to most of the story up to 3, because 3 is not part of that collection. And one thing is certain, the games that you love will be part of the collection, and you'll be able to play them at any given time. And on top of that, it doesn't take up much space on your PlayStation or whatever console you're playing on. And it's, again, multi-console. Something that should have been done years ago, but of course it's Square Enix. With that said, enjoy the lovable Disney/Final Fantasy crossover that actually takes place in Kingdom Hearts, because it finally makes it into the Hall of Fame. I can't say the same for 3. No, seriously, I can't in good faith say the same about 3. That's all. And now, to cap off the 2024 Hall of Fame, we have Tales of Symphonia, a game that, just like the other entries, finally got a multi-console release, because it was originally exclusive to the GameCube, where it was exclusive remastered-wise to the PS3, then finally to all of the next-gen consoles. And it's good thing too, the next-gen consoles are able to do 4-player combat. Not to mention all the characters involved, the story is interesting, and moreover, the music is absolutely gorgeous as well. Not to mention, hell, it's voiced by Teen Titans Robin. You can't get any better than that. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, with all the titles, and all the comedy, and all the tragedy, and all the love in the world that this game has, I give Tales of Symphonia the title of RV-tastic, and also an entry in the Hall of Fame. Now, if only Lloyd can avoid getting kicked in the face. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for our 2024 alumni. And now, it is time for us to list off the 2025 alumni in the Hall of Fame. So with that said, without further ado, let's go! It's time to kick off the 2025 Hall of Fame with a remake, an actual game that has been basically 20 years in the making. It's Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, both the original and the remake, because the original had its charm from the GameCube version, and the remake adds in new charm and even voices too. Well, the Banjo and Kazooie type voices, but still, nonetheless. It has its own charm, it actually has a lot of memorable themes, and moreover, it has the paper mechanic, which pretty much focuses on paper. Whether the paper roll, the paper airplane, or the paper ship, or you turning sideways into paper. It focuses more on not only the paper, but also more on the combat too, which you have the Super Guard, which will be your friend. Definitely be your friend, especially against the later levels. They have most interesting bosses, and not to mention the stages, and the audience themselves can be your enemy, not just the bosses. And you have friends to back you up, new friends that are very powerful and very intricate. And even Super Bowser is here, which is probably one of my favorite moments, with every moment involving Bowser being a laugh riot. And not to mention the one major addition, or should I say two, that they added into Paper Mario. And that, ladies and gentlemen, would be the addition of the one and only Waka, not to mention Prince Mush. 2 fights that was omitted from the original. You can now play them on the Switch version of the game. And by God, those 2 are the hardest fights in the game if you don't know anything about Super Guards. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door and its remake, because even though the English version kinda fucked up things, it's still a good game in its own right.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
What can I say? This game was the alma mater of my channel, and without this game, there wouldn't be any sort of rip-offs or knockoffs. This is the game that literally broke Grand Theft Auto out into the mold because of how unique it is, how you're able to enter into buildings, how you're able to exercise, how you're able to get stronger with every exercise that you do, or every time you use a gun, you get better at using the gun. Every time you drive, you get better at driving. Every time you fly, you get better at flying. And moreover, there's lots of ways for you to make money in this game. And the fact that Grand Theft Auto did not toe the line when it came down to its humor up until 5. The point is, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was probably one of the most funniest memeable games of all time. And it's no wonder that any other game developer would try to mimic it, because it's just that good of a gem. So with that said, give a round of applause for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And oh yeah, about the mimics. Even though the game journalist has been accused of calling Saints Row a GTA San Andreas clone, you really can't call it that, because one thing that Saints Row does that Grand Theft Auto doesn't is created characters. And Saints Row 2 expands on that, not only giving you 2 genders, but also at the same time giving you more customization options. And it's a lot less stricter on the checkpoints than what it is in the first game. It just improved on the first game dramatically. Not to mention, you can actually be your own boss for real and buy shops that could basically get you a lot of money, but moreover do activities that'll net you respect. I mean, look at the amount of respect I have from activities alone. So ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Saints Row 2. Despite its terrible helicopter controls, it is still worlds better than the Saints Row reboot, which is why everybody comes to it on every single console that it's available. Yes, even the PC. And one more thing I should mention. Can a GTA clone literally pull out a dildo bat and beat the shit out of people? Well, yes and no, but CJ has to go through a lot of trouble just to get the dildo bat in the first place. You don't have to. So take that! Oh, and one more thing. It literally took Grand Theft Auto 5 games to have edit characters. And you have to actually buy the online mode to do it. Call of Duty fans, I know you're pissed that I made fun of Ghost and put it in the Hall of Shame, and it rightfully deserves it. But there's a game that rightfully deserves Hall of Fame, and that is Modern Warfare 1. Because I'm gonna admit, as much as I had no good love with the very first 3 games, and no good love with anything between Ghosts and onward, Call of Duty Modern Warfare to me is the golden age. And this set up the 3-part story that everybody knows and loves. Even though there were some, minor executive changes between the games, but I digress. Still, the original version is what you want to play because, after all, the feel, the actual quick play action, and moreover, the fact that things were not changed for the modern audience would basically be your best bet, because after all, you're playing as classic characters like Jackson and Soap, and they're the guys that's trying to uncover Makarov's evil schemes. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause of Call of Duty Modern Warfare as it's in the Hall of Fame. And I mean the original and not the remaster. What can I say? 10 and 10-2 were the alma maters of my channel, and that's the next 5th game that's the alma mater of my channel, but still, they're really good games in their own right. 10 because of its intricate story, and 10-2 because of its gameplay. But nonetheless, we can now enjoy both games at the fullest extent because the international versions have now been remastered for all consoles, including the Switch, the Xbox Series, as well as Switch 2 and Steam. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're now able to pick up and play on whatever console you want. So with that said, give a round of applause for Final Fantasy X and X-2 Remaster, as both games have made it into the Hall of Fame. And seriously, Square Enix, I got to ask, why does it take 20 years for you to do things like this? Seriously. And with that, our alumni for the 2024-2025 Hall of Fame is complete. Give a round of applause for all of the winners. And it would have been done back in December and January if it wasn't for real life. So nonetheless, folks, thank you all for watching, and God have mercy on my soul for the next review, because as promised, it's Mortal Kombat 11. See you all next time.